Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, a Lexus GX460 Premium Special Edition. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. Okay then, Alan, what is the Lexus GX460 Premium?
It's a Land Cruiser.
But it was a Stetson and has cowboy boots, is that?
Well, yes and no. It's a fancy version of the Land Cruiser sold in Canada and a number of third world countries.
Just quickly correct yourself there.
Including Russia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Vietnam, Bolivia, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Panama, Philippines, and the USA. Oh, and the smaller engine one is sold in China as well, by the way, just in case anybody feels I'm being GX engine-sized-ist. It is really a luxury version of the Toyota Land Cruiser sold in the markets that I've just listed. It's what I have bought over here in the land of freedom.
And that replaces the Scion.
That replaces the Scion.
Okay.
Yes.
There will be a link in the show notes too, because we have already had a conversation about that and the unusualness of it.
Essentially, there were a couple of things that happened with the Scion. Scion, nice car, but when I bought it, it was phenomenally expensive because there was nothing available to buy anywhere anywhere in the USA as far as cars were concerned.
And you
reasonably prices. And I hadn't existed, so all sorts of fun stuff around that. It then developed a small glitch, which I'd noticed right at the start with the clutch, got worse and worse and worse. It also started to show the occasional check engine light and some other bits and pieces, and I got a couple of quotes for the clutch, and the clutch was $2,500.
Ouch.
It were quoting
was
me,
it gold?
And that was well, you would think so. And that was from two different recommended garages, both of them with a reputation for not extracting the urine, and both of them going, I'm really sorry, it's. And so I decided to take it along to CarMax, who will give you a price by just about anything, because Carvana is just one step too far. So I took it along to CarMax to get a price from them. And they went, oh, paint's not very good, and took a few $100s off the online quoted price for the paint, which was fair enough, to be perfectly honest, because it was kind of satin finish on one side and gloss on the other. And so they took some money off for that, but then they didn't mention the clutch or anything else. And it was just like, I am not sinking any more money into this. I've just, for various reasons, had got a little bit of money in my bank account. I am going to buy something different.
Something more. Now, after you have experienced the US road system.
Well, there's also that. There's one of the things, whenever you're driving any distance in the US, and you're in a normal height car, let's just say that, then after a little while, you get a little bit bored of the Ford Super Duty light signatures getting burned into your retinas because basically their grille badge is at the same height as your rearview mirror. You realize that the articulated trucks don't have side underrun bars and things. One of the weirdest things about driving here in the US, which I still haven't completely adjusted to, is the thought of, there's a truck, I'd better get past it before the junction. In our little European minds, trucks travel at 90 kilometers an hour, 56 miles an hour, in our little European minds. So a truck is always slower than you.
Yeah.
Almost always slower than you. Not here.
Oh.
Not here. Here they're doing 75.
Yeah, I do feel with a lot of stuff that I've learned, thanks partly to you, but also thanks to the power of social media, safety seems to be a thing that is for other people a lot of the time on the roads.
Safety, my friend, is the opposite of freedom.
I am now, when somebody quotes that, how many people are killed in accidents in the US, it's remarkable. It's not much more.
Well, yes, exactly. And the standard of driving, the amount of the paltry amount of attention that is actually paid to the road and to the skill of driving is quite impressive. Trucks have massive blind spots. They've got no side underrun bars and stuff. And just on longer journeys, I just didn't. When I was back in the UK in February, relatively speaking, I felt significantly much bigger on the road in the GRMN in the UK than I did in the much bigger Scion in the US.
Okay.
A colleague was over recently and went, oh, that's a massive car. Well, that's such a silly size of car, Alan. And it's like, not so much. He wanted to go to one of the outlet malls nearby. And when we came out to put our various bags of designer gear into the car, then he was like, where is it? It's like, it's behind all those 5 pickup trucks. So it's somewhere down there. And he's like, it looks so small. Yeah, it really is. Despite the fact that it can seat 7 and whatever else, it is quite compact. In fact, it's not that much longer, and it's definitely narrower than the current generation RAV4.
Oh, right.
So it's one of those great big SUV type things where it's like, it's not really any bigger, is it? Certainly not in footprint. Anyway, I've gone off on a great long ramble there, which I didn't really mean to. I was going to tell you that we're reviewing a vehicle essentially when its successor, the GX550, which has a V6 engine and in some versions a hybrid assist, has already been announced, and that they've shown the Lexus version. They have not shown the new Toyota version, which will be the replacement for the Land Cruiser.
Okay.
Or is the replacement for the Land Cruiser. The Land Cruiser's been shown in kind of silhouette up against an old FJ model. It's going to be slightly retro, kitsch, far blockier than mine. Believe it or not, that sort of Lego block look. Yesterday we recorded the news show talking about the new Hyundai Santa Fe. Much more of that kind of style to it than of the sort of current style that I have. Not only, by the way, are we reviewing a vehicle that's already been replaced, we're reviewing a vehicle that we've mostly already reviewed. Andrew had the Land Cruiser Invincible a couple of Christmases ago. In fact, in Christmas 2019, I think it was, which ties up, so it's the same model year. I actually think the Invincible had a little bit more spec. I mean, re-listened to your review, but there'll be a link to that in the show notes as well. So if you want the diesel version of this, which is all you can get in the UK and in most of Europe, then we have driven that as well. I did almost get distracted, by the way, by a Cadillac ELR. It's worth mentioning that. It's the only other vehicle that I took for a test drive. I didn't intend on doing it. I was actually looking at Cadillac SUVs because there are some quite smart-looking things in the Cadillac model range these days. And I got distracted by the ELR. ELR is really interesting to me, because it's essentially a Chevrolet Volt, but in a luxury two-door coupe version.
All right, okay.
And it was lovely. It felt so far ahead of its time. So it was 2017, I think, that I tried. It felt so far ahead of its time. It was really, really nice. But for reasons I'll go into later, I decided to stick to my guns and stick to the GX, which is what I'd kind of decided I wanted. In fact, had I been able to find one, I would possibly have bought it instead of the Scion when I arrived, but they were just unobtainium, and I then did even more research. GX460 has I don't think I've said here, has a 4.6 litre V8 engine. Yoo-hoo. We'll talk about that a bit more later. There is a V6 engine GX400, which is only sold in China. It's available in a number of colours. It's available in post-2020 one. So it got a further, so mine is the first facelift. There were two facelifts for the 460. The first one took it from a sort of smiley, smirky face into the first generation of the Lexus spindle grille. So the easiest way to tell the difference between a first facelift and a second facelift is the first facelift has horizontal slats inside the spindle grille. The second facelift, it has a sort of mesh style with all the sort of points. It looks like looks a bit more like the skin of a pineapple.
Yeah.
There you go. There's ways you didn't expect a car grille to be described. I'm talking all the specs and prices and everything for the 2019 model year, like what mine is. So it was available in a number of colours. You could have Starfire Pearl, which is white, Silver Lining Metallic, which unsurprisingly is silver, Nebula Grey Pearl, which is metallic grey, a Nightfall Mica, which is a really nice dark blue, Fire Agate Pearl, which is probably the rarest colour, which was a kind of metallic brown, which was actually quite nice. Black Onyx, which is black, and Claret Mica, which is a very nice dark red. You could also have choice 3 interior colours: black, leather or leather-esque, sepia, which is brown, leather or leather-esque, and ecru, which is beige.
Oh.
I think that one's only available in leather, from memory. I really wanted the blue or the burgundy, or even the brown, with the sepia interior, but those colours are rare. The way that most people buy their cars here is that they don't order them in the way that we would do in Europe and expect to wait a few weeks and then, hey, look, it's new car day, woo! They expect to be able to drive in. Only the coolest of people waits 12 weeks for a black, almost base model Yaris to be available. They don't. They expect, it's the American thing, instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, the dealers tend to only spec the colours and combinations they know are going to sell quickly to get them off the lot.
So we can't blame Quentin Wilson for this. It is
On
dealers.
this case, no, it's we blame the dealers. Really, they're mostly white, silver, or black, with the occasional metallic grey, and very rarely you'll see one of the other colours.
Okay.
As a result, I had to compromise. Mine is black on the outside, which is fantastic in the heat, but it's sepia brown interior. In fact, to be honest, the interior colour was almost more important than the exterior colour.
Okay.
But there was no way I was having white, otherwise you would have needed the United Nations sticker package on it.
Yeah. I did actually see a white Land Cruiser recently. A new one, most recent model before they canned them over here. And you look at it and you go, yeah, that has to have a light blue UN on the side.
I don't think they canned them. I think they made them unavailable to order.
Well, I thought that they'd replace them with the whatever the other top of the range is now. Can't remember what it's called. Yeah.
It's what sensible people would buy. I don't think they've really replaced it with the Highlander. If you look at the website, it's just unavailable to order, and it might well be because they've stopped producing them. Anyway, mine new would have cost $56,600 plus the appropriate tax for your state, registration fees for your state, and whatever rubbish the dealer decided to stick in there as well in terms of magic coatings and paperwork charges and all the other rubbish that happens over here and is increasingly happening in the UK. If you spec the current model to around the same, it is $60,710. My local dealer has 3 in stock for round about that. They've got a few extras like tailpiece trims and all sorts of other silly things, which should really be standard. Engine itself, 4.6 litre. That's 281 cubic inches for those of you who use Freedom units. Petrol V8, putting out 301 horsepower and 329 pound-foot of the torques at a mere 3,400 RPM. That's transferred to the road or whatever other surface you desire via a 6-speed automatic with a with a transfer case and a permanent 4-wheel drive that travels front and back through a Torsen limited slip center diff that can be electronically locked via a button on the dashboard.
Mm-hmm. So it's capable.
We'll get to a little bit of that. Not that I've tested it, but yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
It weighs a mere 2,327 kilograms, which a while ago we would have said is incredibly heavy, but these days is a featherweight.
Yeah, don't put any batteries in that.
Yeah. It has the aerodynamics of a brick, essentially, so that does blunt performance of speed rises. I couldn't find a 0 to 60 time. It doesn't seem to be. Doesn't seem to be something that was done.
I think there's a reason for that.
Oh, no. Trust me. It is sufficiently brisk. Definitely up to 60. Good. Joining... No. Progress can be made very easily. However, as the aerodynamics do play a role, because if you go over a certain speed, then all of a sudden you find it, whilst the car will maintain it quite happily, uphill and down dale, you do notice it in the fuel consumption.
Yeah, but fuel's so cheap over there, it doesn't matter.
Let's get on to fuel consumption, actually. Fuel consumption, the EPA ratings are 16, 15, and 18, combined city and highway. Now, bear in mind, that's Freedom gallons, which are significantly smaller than an Imperial gallon. Okay? I get the best figure from that, anyway, round about there. Those figures, by the way, are quite accurate. I'm not exactly Captain Featherfoot, but generally I get around the highway. That includes whenever I have to dodge in and out of the city or around town. That works out as a bit more than 20 to the gallon.
Okay.
The best I've seen is 24 Imperial miles per gallon, so that's 24 euros. And to be honest, normally it's between 20 and 24.
Okay.
I don't feel it's too bad. Add to that premium fuel here, whenever I wrote these notes a week or so ago, is $4.39.9 per US gallon, which works out as 91 pence per litre. And that's for premium.
Right, we've all just gone off you incredibly. Wow.
To compare, and this, by the way, is a particularly expensive part of the USA in which to buy fuel, as it is an expensive
You're not
part
winning
of the USA
friends
to do anything. That compared to Corby, which is a cheap part of the UK to buy fuel, it was £1.47 per litre for Tesco 99 whenever I last checked online. It makes running this here not so painful, really. it is quite. It's not. Well, I don't do a massive mileage either. To be honest, I'm not at the minute.
We are all so very happy for you, Alan.
On a day-to-day basis, I do not do a lot of miles. It will quite easily sit in the garage downstairs for 5 days of the week.
Okay, can we move on now to what sort of competition is in the marketplace for this, please, before we all switch off the podcast, including me?
The most direct competition is actually the Land Rover Defender 110.
All right. So there's nothing US?
Well, US stuff is either smaller and cheaper and very road biased,
Okay.
or it is much bigger.
Right.
If you're starting to look at your Escalade, your Suburbans, which are essentially
Because
the same vehicle.
it's quite a Japanese stroke European size vehicle.
Yes.
Even though it's big, but it's a big Japanese European vehicle, not
Yes.
which doesn't translate to the US easily.
Even your shorter wheelbase, shorter length Suburban, let's say, is a good foot or two longer.
Oh, right. Okay.
And probably about a foot wider.
Wow. Well, you've got to fit all those cup holders, haven't you?
In theirs, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Subaru Ascent, of course, being the winner in that. That Subaru Ascent is there, but it's not in the same price bracket. It's not in the same comfort bracket. And again, it's monocoque. It's not body on chassis.
Okay.
Goodness knows what the 110 is these days. It's it's a handbag on watch or something. I don't know. Who can tell? But it is very nice, the Defender 110. I had a little bit of a look, actually, the other week at the British Car Day at my friendly local car museum. There was also a 130 beside the 110, so I could actually look in the back of those.
Yeah.
The 130 is far bigger in the third row than mine is. So you would now actually compare that with the Lexus Texas.
That's added the length behind the last wheel, though, hasn't it?
Yes.
They've not stretched the chassis or the
No, it's the same wheelbase. Despite the numbers.
Added feet behind.
Yes. They've added quite a bit of space in the back. It's about the same sizes with the Defender 110, body on frame, roughly the same power output. The new GX, the GX550, is actually significantly more powerful than most of the Defenders.
Okay.
At a mere 301 horsepower, mine is about the same. It's slightly more powerful than the least powerful Defender sold over here. Other competition would be stuff like the Discovery 5, which is a bit off-roady.
Okay.
Stuff like the XC90, X5, X7 is far more road-biased. This is very much a soccer mom car over here. There's kind of two angles to the ownership. One is, let's off-road, because it's body on frame, not very big. Great market for accessories and stick-on bits, and it's reliable, etc. The other end, the people who buy them new generally, does tend to be the sort of posh soccer mom setup. One colleague of mine looked at them, decided they were a bit small, went off and bought an X7 M60i instead, and he does not complain about lack of power in that. In fact, he really quite likes that a lot. And the thing about the X7 is it doesn't look stupid sized here. That's been a bit of an overview. It's been quite a ramble there. I think I've covered quite a lot of things.
Yeah, no, there's a good introduction to it for us because, we don't know and understand the US market, etc.
Two countries divided by a common language, really. I mean, the language is about the only thing that the UK and the US have in common. That is increasingly impressed upon me the longer I'm here. Yes, it's very different. And the car market, totally. I mean, part of it is, I've forgotten what the book's called now. Oh, it was one of LJK Setright's books talking about the sort of social history of the motor car, and I've forgotten its name right at the second. But essentially, the American car market a lot of it is born out from a car being an agricultural machine required in the countryside, because in the early days of the car here, there were fantastic public transport in the US.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas in Europe, it has come down from being a rich person's plaything, and a car has pretty much always been a luxury. And that, even now, to an extent, explains just the difference in attitude to vehicles, to driving. Originally, because you needed a Model T to get the distances between the towns and stuff, which has never been the same kind of issue in Europe. So there's lots of stuff like that about why American cars, and thus the American car market, is the way it is compared to Europe. And of course, attitudes and financial positions and health of countries just after the Second World War as well. and the rise of marketing in the US and all these kind of fun stuff.
Mhm.
It's actually a very interesting topic all in itself. We actually got some sort of expert on.
Do you want to do a quick run through of the exterior, though, for anyone that doesn't know what a Land Cruiser or what changes have been made by Lexus?
Yeah, it's worth mentioning, by the way, this is based on the smaller Land Cruiser. So what's sold as the Prado in much of the world, as opposed to what was sold in Europe as the Amazon. That also has been, can't remember if it is right at the minute, available here as a Lexus Lexus LX 570, which has a V8 engine as well. It's a 5.7 litre V8 engine, which is from a completely different family from the one that's in mine.
Okay.
Both flavors are available. This is the smaller flavor. The other one's far rarer. So it's essentially a Land Cruiser with a Predator mouth, stroke spindle grille on the front, and a lower front spoiler, which hampers it a bit off-road, I'm told. I haven't tried it that hard yet. Over here, it is only available as a 5-door, so there's no short wheelbase version. And there are no commercial versions, even badged as a Toyota. There's no commercial versions, there's nothing like that. All are the same engine, all are automatic as well. I know it doesn't really come in as a description of the exterior, but I'll cover it now. It is still body-on-frame off-roader. There is, and even when you're looking at it, although there is a sports trim that you can get, there is no sport involved here at all. The one thing I did fit is one of those great things in the US, which we don't have in the UK, and that is the concept of the hitch mount. You know, in Europe, whenever we fit a tow bar, you fit the ball and the sticky out bit. Here you don't. You fit essentially a piece of square tubing into which you can then mount hitches or other fun accessories.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I've actually got a bike rack for the back of mine. So I fitted, but thankfully for this, of course, because it's got a chassis, then and the rear cross member is right at the back, then I bought the hitch mount, fitted it myself in 10 minutes, lying on the floor of the garage downstairs. This comes with all the trailer lights and controls as standard, including trailer sway control whenever you're driving. Really, it was just a case of bolt on the hitch and you're away. Maximum tow capacity on one of these is 6,500 pounds. That does require a slightly bigger, chunkier hitch than I fitted because I'm not really intending on towing that much. But mine takes a 5,000 pound hitch. That's still enough.
That's a hell of a bike.
That's still enough for 2 tons. Quite
Your legs
easily.
will be massive if you can pedal that.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It was super easy. It was only 4 bolts onto the rear cross member, lining up the hitch. And I bought a fancy hitch with a spacer plate, so I didn't have to cut into the bumper. Just bolt back in, and that cost me a whopping great $75. Boot area is accessed via a side hinged door. What's hilarious about that is it's hinged for right-hand drive, so it opens against the curb if you're parked.
Lexus have done a very French thing where
Yes.
stuff changing this for a different market.
Yeah, exactly.
I like
Other
it.
markets, which is kind of funny because other markets it actually hinges up the way, or I believe in some third world markets for Land Cruiser versions, then it also will. I think it splits as well. I think it does a two.
Oh, right, so you can
two-door.
sit on it.
No, different way. 2 routes. But
Oh,
the new,
sorry, right. Yeah.
But from memory, the new GX does have a fold down seat bit, I think.
Very important for all the shooting parties.
Yes. I've said before, this is a large car by European standards, compact by US standards. You do lose it in car parks. It does get obscured behind F-150s and stuff like that.
But you need to fit on an incredibly bendy pole, a giant flag.
It's tempting. You can actually get a fitting for the front of it. If you go to some of the dunes and you go off-roading places, some of them you do need a flag. And some people do sell a flag mount that you can sort of mount from under the bumper and it comes round, so you don't actually have to grip it onto your paintwork.
Oh, right, okay. Well, that's the outside. Do you want to take us to the inside?
Yeah, one last thing. That's that you can actually get into the boot via the hatch in the top half of the door as well. So it does open up the way electrically.
I
and
love
releases.
that. As a feature, that is brilliant.
It's a particularly nice one, actually, because it takes the spoiler and the rear wiper with it.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Because the rear wiper is top mounted up inside the spoiler. So it's it makes it very clean at the back, I guess. But then the wiper comes down the way, which also means that it doesn't do half its sweep without any squish on it whenever you want to clean the back window.
Yeah, the Berlingo is mounted through the glass at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So you do lift the whole wiper up as well.
But not the motor, though, do you?
Yeah, it's all in one unit, and it.
Fair enough. So the inside contains American luxury. That means there's leather eek. Thankfully, it stopped short of ruched leather, so there's a lucky break. There are some bits of stitching, and there is sort of mahogany trim. It's actually sapelli, which is a common mahogany substitute, and I think the amount of it is tiny, but it's just got like 5 mil of lacquer across it because everything is so glossy. It is sort of brown leather and brown wood, which is, to be honest, it's a really nice, comfortable, pleasant place to be. Starting at the back, as we do traditionally on here, it is big by pretty much anyone's standards. I have a sort of fridge cooler thing, which I tend to keep back there because I only have a 1-bedroom apartment and a limited amount of storage space. Just lives in the car because that's extra space 90% of the time. I've also got one of those action packer boxes, which is essentially my garage. So it has tools and a tow kit and all sorts of bits and pieces in there as well. And that takes up just under half of the boot space. And I've got sort of corner things that Velcro into the carpet, just hold everything in place. So it all looks quite neat most of the time, he says, thinking about the state it is right now. The third row stows under the floor.
Oh, okay.
The downside of that is that the floor is significantly higher than it would be if it didn't. You lose 3 to 4 inches. And it's very obvious because whenever you open the back door, you can see that there's this extra 4-inch step inside the back door.
Yeah, but that is a vehicle you can lose 3 to 4 inches in height because there's still an awful lot.
I can still quite happily stand a 2.5-year-old inside the boot, and she thinks that that's hilarious.
Till you brake hard. Joking, he doesn't drive when they're standing up. Oh dear.
Yes, her parents banned that kind of thing.
After the first instant.
After the first 3. No, right, stop. It is 2 individual seats. They do fold up in seconds. Unlike the Invincible that Andrew drove, where his had the electric-powered foldy thing, which is standard on the luxury trim spec, not just the premium trim spec of GX460, then you do actually have to pull 2 levers and a little cord thing to pop the headrest up. Still, you're done in seconds to fold those up.
It saves a little bit of weight as well. And I note from your pictures, and it's just sort of bringing vague memories back as well, that those 2 individual seats have side seat belts, so it's a normal 3.
Oh yeah, it's 3-point seat belts as well. Yes. So
it's proper seat belts. It's not like in the 80s when there was extra seats in the boot and they occasionally throw a seatbelt at you if you were lucky across your lap.
The original Discovery where they sort of folded up, very neat, folded up, but you got this kind of lap seatbelt and you sat sideways.
Yeah.
Type of thing. No, not like that at all. They are proper 3 points.
And it looks like there's actual room there as well for people to sit properly. It has been thought out.
There is, and that's the pictures of the middle row slid back as far as possible. That's minimum legroom. Not really had anyone back there. Not needed to have anyone back there, to be honest. We've normally managed to fit everyone in front 5 seats. Yeah, on occasions where friends and I have gone away for the weekend, where you've got a sub 1 year, a sub 3 year, and 2 parents, and me, and all of the junk that accompanies said small children, we have managed to just fit it all in the back. Thank goodness.
Right, so you mentioned there the middle row of seats, that so they're slidable?
They are, but just quickly worth mentioning that the rearmost seats each has a cup holder and a roof vent for the 3rd zone aircon. Middle row, yeah, slidable, reclinable. It's 40-20-40, but it automatically works as 60-40, if you know what I mean. 20 in the middle can be folded separately should you need, want, or desire. It is possible to spec a pair of captain's chairs instead on premium and luxury models, in which case, of course, you only get 2 seats. But they have their own little pop-out cup holders and stuff. One of the things that you do miss out with that is that there is always this big hole through into the boot space.
Yeah.
So if you put loads of stuff in the back, there is more chance that some of it will come wheeking through the middle.
Surely there is some aftermarket special luggage securing thingy.
You'll notice that one thing I didn't mention when we were talking about the boot space, and there aren't really any curry hooks, by the way. There are sort of ones for the little net I've got across the back door, but there aren't really any dedicated curry hooks, is that a rear luggage cover is not standard. And even on eBay, they cost about $300. Thankfully, it's quite heavily tinted back there, so I don't really feel the need for one. But yeah.
If you did, you'd just get a sheet and pin it in the corner.
Yeah, I'm not quite that tight.
At
No,
300 quid.
I would get the proper one, but I would not pay $300 for it. I will keep an eye out. You can get other ones from China which are not standard. I might consider. Middle row, yes, they slide, they recline. The outer seats are heated and have ISOFIX. Don't use the seat heaters and the ISOFIX at the same time. That would be silly. There is plenty of space for 2 kids' seats isofixed in the outer seat, and a smaller person can sit, I'm told, in comfort between them. I haven't done that.
You haven't been driving and tested that out at the same time, Alan, but why not?
I have not been driving and testing that out at the same time, no. Yeah, there are cup holes in the door and the rear armrest, vents in the roof for the aircon, but there's no 12-volt or USB sockets back there. I fitted a 3x12-volt and 4 USB splitter unit to the back of the cubby.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I forgot to mention about the boot trunk area is it does have a 110-volt socket.
Oh, nice. Of
limited wattage. So to be honest, it would be more useful if it was a 12-volt, but it isn't.
Oh, okay.
As a result, I have one cable trailing to this splitter, and then from the splitter, there's the other cable that leads to the toolbox.
Okay.
Running under the carpet. Up front seats, electric, heated, cooled. Yay. And the driver's has a memory function as well. Seats are comfortable. There's not a lot of side bolstering on the squab. It's not bad on the back, but on the squab is a little bit slippery, particularly on American leather. Dashboard, however, console was one of the big changes for the 2020 Plus model, where it gained a much bigger screen mounted at the very top of the center console, and also CarPlay and Android Auto. Mine doesn't have. The plastic down there is kind of silvery, goldy spray finish. It looks Amstrad, but it feels Denon, if you know what I mean. It does look quite cheap, but then the feel of all the buttons and everything is really nice, particularly stuff like the volume knob is just really nicely damped.
Good.
From the top, it goes vents, then a touch screen with a pretty old tech UI. I'll talk about that a bit later. The shortcut buttons down both sides. It's not too bad to use. It's both better and worse than the Touch 2 unit in the GRMN, depending on what function you're talking about.
Okay.
Below that is a reduced set of aircon controls. You get rather cheesy round temperature buttons for each side, which look a bit cheap and out of place. They're the bit that makes it look most Amstrad.
Right.
But then you get buttons in the middle in a much nicer, more sophisticated looking little panel, which controls the recirc, whether you want it auto or off, the defrost and demist, and then alter the screen as well is the other option there, as well as a switch that turns the rear aircon unit on or off. Temperature only shows in degrees freedom. It turns out that's not a software setting. It is actually hardwired into it's to do with the jumpers on the PCB, and you have to take out the whole unit and disassemble it and then change the jumper from one bit to another bit. It's not even a jumper. You have to actually remove a link from one bit and then solder it back in somewhere else. I'll stick with degrees freedom. The system is one of those ones where you set the temperature, you just leave it. Just let it do its stuff and you will be comfortable. Do not fiddle with it. The rest of the controls, you can go into more detail. You have to do that through the touchscreen. There is a climate shortcut button, and then you can twiddle it from there. But like in most Lexuses are like this, that basically you set the temperature, you just let it work it out. This one isn't smart enough like it is in some, where it will turn on the cooled seats. If it decides you need the cooled seats, you do have to do that stuff manually in this one. So it's not full climate manager thing. Below that, there is a CD and a DVD drive, the only physical CD and DVD drives I have here, with knobs for volume, tuning, and track, or preset skip buttons as well. Onto the center bit, there's a sort of wood, see previous comments, cover for the USB ports and 12-volt socket, the seat heater and cooler, the sort of rollers to control the seat heater and cooler either side. Back from that, we've got traditional PRND shift lever. The only drive mode it has is Sport, which is pulling the lever to the side, and then you can plus and minus as you so desire if you need engine braking, or I don't know. I've only used it once or twice for engine braking, and that was it. Couple of button blanks, as I have the steel suspension, not the air suspension. that you get on the luxury model. And I don't have the adaptive damping either. Both of these are seen as quite a good thing because they can be a bit much. And they are the bits that fail at some point. There are other switches there for descent control, which can be swapped out for a crawl control module instead. You can also fit terrain response module. In total, I think it's about $550, $600 for those two modules. And one of the wonders of Toyota engineered stuff is that it's very often plug and play. So it's simply a case of disassembling half the passenger side of the dashboard, plugging the modules in, and then all of a sudden you magically have these new features that were only available on more expensive models. It's kind of ridiculous that the luxury model was the one that came with all the hardcore off-roading stuff, but there you go. Pinnacle in front of the driver, analog, speedo, tack, fuel, water temperature with a gear display, and a small white on black screen in the middle, which can show a couple of things, standard basic trip computer functions, that kind of stuff. Nothing very exciting. There are little circular portholes for the gear selector position. It will actually tell you, as well as just showing you on a little image of the gear selector, which is a bit tautological. And then there's another little porthole, which in mine only really shows you if you've got the rear hatch open, but in models with air suspension, will show you if it's raising or lowering and which particular ride height has been chosen.
Okay.
But I neither need nor desire that. Steering wheel itself has cruise control and navigation for the binnacle screen. That's it. The wheel has wooden bits on it, so they get nice and hot. So, I don't ever feel the need for wooden bits on my steering wheel. The leather on my steering wheel is also incredibly shiny, given it's only a 38,000-mile car. I don't know how much hand cream the previous owner used. I suspect it was really quite a lot.
If we follow our normal routine, then this would be the time that you tell us about all the driving dynamics.
Well, thanks for that, Andrew. Yes, I will. Yeah, I guess there are some. Driving it is really not dynamic. If you put the GRMN at one end of the scale, towards one end of the scale, Caterham 7 further that way, this is quite far in the opposite direction, but that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. A sports car here, I decided, would be a waste. Partly because around here, the roads are not that interesting. I mean, everything is like as wide as the M25. And if it's not as wide as the M25, then it is mostly a case of navigating potholes.
Oh, okay.
It's appalling around here. I would hesitate to I just decided not to buy a sports car here. Partly because of the winters. Partly because the condition of the roads I have to cross to get from mine to anywhere I want to go without taking a significant detour would just trash the suspension components and trash the alloys. Just no, really. Urban roads are appalling. Anything that's not an urban road tends to be wide and straight, or at the very worst, by my Scottish standards, gently curving.
Right.
No particular need for a Lotus Elise.
Okay.
This rides quite well. It's not exactly soft, but it does still manage to pitch under braking. And yes, of course, it rolls in the bends. It is a body-on-frame off-roader, which is designed for off-roading. This is not a sports utility vehicle, by the way. You'll notice I've not used that term at all. At least I've not intentionally used that term.
That would be a fib.
Because it would very much be a fib. Sport out the window. It's a luxury utility vehicle. I'm sure that's been coined before. I've heard that one. That roll, by the way, not quite as bad as you expect. This has dynamic anti-roll bars. It's a system called KDSS, and it stands for Kinetic Dynamic Suspension System. It essentially connects front and rear anti-roll bars with hydraulic fluid by some magic, and it's kind of passive in that there's no setting for it. I can't say I wish to roll more now. It's all speed controlled and sort of road surface controlled, so it reacts to what the car is doing. If I'm at low speeds, then there will be less anti-roll bar than if I am turning at high speeds. It's generally stable, but if you go slowly and pitch it hard then into a roundabout, it will roll. I mean, it won't roll over, but there will be body roll.
Yeah.
That 4.6 litre V8, mostly silent most of the time, which is good. It is. It's very relaxing. But it is one of those cars where just by gently resting your foot on the throttle, you do tend to build speed without noticing. The other thing, of course, stuff like over here driving like that, I've already discussed how normally a truck is doing 56 miles an hour. Here it can be doing 76 miles an hour quite easily. And also other people. Just because the speed limits are lower here in the US does not mean people drive slower here in the US. In fact, they tend to drive like a bat out of hell. Well, they either drive like they've first time they've ever been in a car, or they're going like a bat out of hell. There is no middle ground.
Right.
Certainly not around Boston, certainly not to the south of Boston anyway. I often use a manual cruise control. It doesn't have adaptive. That came later in a sort of vague attempt at license correct. I mean, it is an invisible car on the roads here. There are so many black Lexus GXs. It's not quite as common as the Subaru Crosstrek, but it's getting there. Worth mentioning that engine, it does share some genetics with the LC500 that I had a couple of summers ago. It's the same bottom half, although the top, it doesn't have the awesome Yamaha designed head. Not just the LC500, but cars like the ISF, the RCF and the GSF also used that same LC500 engine. So there's a connection there.
Lineage.
They began from roughly the same chunk of metal. If you do put your foot down, then it will kick down and it will make V8 noises. It's not the full wob, 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 wob type setup because it is a single exhaust system right the way back. It's not twin pipes with a crossover or anything like that, but it just goes and does it. But most of the time it's silent. One of the key reasons to buy this is for road trips. It does excel at those at driving speeds. Silent, it's comfortable. I'll get to it in a minute, but the stereo is fantastic. That's really the plan for it.
Cool. Well, I think we have to move on to technology. Can you tell us all about what is oozing out of this car technology-wise?
Not a lot. Honestly, it doesn't really have that much tech. It's got nothing that really stands out. It has blind spot monitoring.
That's helpful.
It has no lane departure warning. It has sat-nav. It's got manual cruise control. The sat-nav costs $250 to upgrade the maps because it's maps on a chip. Even then, they're not very up-to-date. When I got it, I went along to the Lexus dealer and said, yeah, new maps. What's the deal? And they said, $250. And they said, but don't buy the ones yet. It was like, why not? And they said, well, they haven't renumbered all the junctions around here yet. So unless you really, really need it, I would wait and then see if they've done it in the autumn release. And once we've got the autumn release, we'll know, and then we'll know if it's worth ordering. But if it's junction numbers you need, then don't do it yet. So that's fair enough.
Okay. A helpful dealer. That's nice.
Well, yes. But yeah, a helpful parts department at the dealer, yes. Yes, parts department, very good indeed. Very impressed with them. They're lovely. And the coffee and the cookies, whilst you're waiting at the dealer, are also very good indeed. Prices for replacing rear reversing lights, not so good. Spicy, I would say.
And that's not just your Scottishness coming out.
That is not just my Scottishness coming out. The unit will download the weather and traffic using HD radio, which is the American version of DAB. It seems to work well. Actual fact, the sat-nav generally works well. I mean, I'm used to Lexus and Toyota sat-navs. I'm maybe a little bit more accommodating of the unique and special way in which they read out directions and when they read them out. I do sometimes use it if I know the traffic's going to be bad and I have to go through central Boston on the sort of the big dig tunnels. Then I use that because phone-based GPS, solely GPS-based sat-nav goes nuts whenever you get stuck in traffic under there and it doesn't know where you are relative to the junctions. Whereas this one is much, much better. Obviously, it's directly related to the speed sensor in the car and all sorts of fun stuff like that.
But I thought AM would tell you everything.
Let's not go there.
Don't forget, we must have AM on everything.
I don't know. I've never used it, funnily enough.
It will have.
It will have. It must do. It can also read out text messages sent to my phone. It will make a loud binging noise.
Lucky you.
And it will read any text message out in a shrieky American lady voice, which is quite strange. It's quite very strange whenever it's from your dad or someone. Yeah.
Or that's not your Siri voice that you have.
It's not. It's very much not British Siri, British Lady Siri, which is what more my stuff is set for. That's a little bit strange. The thing I've got to put in the list here is that the quality of the stereo is really fantastic. This is not the optional Mark Levinson system. It is the standard system, which still has a multiplicity of speakers. I mean, I've still counted. I think I've identified where there 11 are. And I've probably not got them all. I think there's a subwoofer hidden underneath the dashboard somewhere. It's really very good. I've had to turn down the bass a bit because it was a little bit...
But the Motoring podcast comes through really well.
Comes through
clear.
Beautifully. Yeah, it actually does. Yes. It makes the Motoring podcast, other podcasts come through very, very easily. That's normally a pretty good test, actually, of a car stereo, is how easy it is to listen to podcasts and stuff.
Don't you have that playlist of the...
Yeah, the Rolls-Royce playlist. Yes, it was the Rolls-Royce Black Series playlist that was put together by listener and really nice guy, David Monks. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, I hope so. Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry if I've got that wrong.
He's just moved.
He has. This is. That gets used in test cars anyway. Across the lines, all these songs come through and they are crystal clear. It's just such a nice stereo.
But that's what you need. If you've got a car that you are wanting to do lots of road trips in, and let's be fair, if you're going to do a road trip, Merca is a good place to do it because it's so huge. And everything does become a road trip just to go and get your tacos or your shopping or whatever it is. That's a road trip suddenly because everything's miles away.
There's only two distances in America. There's just around the corner and an hour away. And pretty much no matter where you are, those are the measures. Because when you're in urban centres, it can take so flipping long to go anywhere by car. It takes an hour. Equally, you can pick up most stuff around here at Duncan. There's a Duncan on every corner. It's the New England dream. Between that and CVS and Target and stuff and Chipotle and any of these decent fast food places, then they're everywhere.
Mm.
Or it's a trek. There is no middle ground.
Yeah, but because of that, you need your car to be comfy, unobtrusive, and you want a good sound system because you are going to be listening to something, whether it's spoken word or whether it's music.
And unobtrusive, I think, is optional. And what you've just said there, of course, goes right the way back to what I said about at the beginning of this, about the derivation of why American cars are the way American cars are and why European cars are the way European cars are.
Mm.
But yes, my plan is to take this. I'm heading off to Devil's Tower in Wyoming, as you do, via a number of other stops en route. And I believe I will come back declaring I have bought the perfect car for this.
With that in mind, your verdict's really very negative then.
I love it. Let's be completely clear. This is, if you are sensible and measured and you are weighing up all your options, you will not buy this car. This is a thirsty car. It's not particularly space efficient inside. It's not great for carrying 7 people. It has off-road ability you will practically never use. You just don't need this car.
Sounded like you needed to get a van.
You should buy a Toyota Highlander instead, which is a minibus in disguise. It is very good. I had one for the first month I was here. It is the Highlander is a lovely vehicle. They're about to bring out a Grand Highlander. So see previous comments about the Lexus, the Land Rover 130, Defender 130.
Mm.
Oh, I got it all wrong there. Got my wrong brand house. And there is now, the new Lexus, what's being jokingly called the Lexus Texas, that's the Lexus TX, has just been announced. If you are sensible and you want to carry 7 people around, you will buy the Lexus TX. If you want to carry fewer than that, you will buy the Lexus RX.
Okay.
If you don't want to spend as much as that, then you will buy the Toyota Highlanders and stuff from there. You won't buy this. People will still buy this, though, because it's like all the best cars. It is pretty flawed. But I really love it. I'm really pleased with it. I was asked the other day if I would bring it back. And really, whether I bring it back or not depends on whether I can pay off the outstanding finance whenever it's time to come back. I don't intend on changing my car again in the time I'm in the US.
This feels like, from everything you've described and knowing you like I do, this feels like a much more Alan car than the Scion did. And I know there's reasons why you got that car.
Mm.
One of them being that is all there was.
It is a bit.
It was that or walk.
Yeah.
So I do get that, but this definitely feels much more you and will enable you to do much more, I believe, in your...
Even stuff like going away for friends at the weekend. Now, I normally buy my cars with 3 doors or fewer, so I don't have to carry passengers. But it's just been so darn convenient. It's like I'm collecting them from the airport.
Welcome to joining the rest of us.
I know, having to go out.
Allowing other people in your car.
Like other people in my car and fitting of kiddie seats and all sorts of other stuff, which I'm just not used to. Yannick and I have become very quick at that.
Your twitches are really under control as well from thinking of all the mess those kids could make in the back.
There was a point where...
Have you got a battery hoover?
Yeah.
Is there any modifications or anything that you are planning or possibly will plan to do with this vehicle?
Well, previous owner fitted tyres that are too small. However, they fitted good tyres that are too small relatively recently.
So there's plenty of tread.
And then the trouble is, so there's plenty of tread. And they're actually quite quiet and they're quite economical tyres. And they're actually got a good rating, which is a pain in the bottom because they're actually quite ugly. They have this nasty side pattern that makes them look much chunkier than they are. And it just looks a little bit try-hard. But the trouble is, if I bought new tyres, I could go out and replace the tyres, but I don't really want to replace tyres because the wheels look like they're a little bit inboard. So I'd want ones with a little bit less offset. Then you end up, and then you go, well, actually, I prefer a 17-inch wheel instead of an 18-inch wheel. And those 17-inch wheels fit, and they look really good. And that'll just give it a bit more grrr, even though it doesn't really need it. But it'll just make it give better stature. And then I'm worried that if I do that, then it'll look weird because the tyres might be too big and it'll sit too low at the same time. So they'll have to lift it. And then you think, well, that would be cool and that's fine. And then you go, well, the next thing, it looks a bit lame without a roof rack on the top. And then I know that that's another $800 for a decent low profile one, which doesn't really raise roof height that much. And then you think, but then the front clip is a bit low. So maybe I should get sort of one of those kind of concealed discrete winch bumpers that goes at the bottom and it protects that bit. So it's knowing that it's like that. And then it becomes a slippery slope.
And next week on Alan's Descent into Madness.
But no, the trouble is I don't have the ability here. I don't have the capability here. So I have the skills. I know the processes, but I just don't have the tools available to me to do it myself.
So it's gonna remain pretty much stock as is.
It should get.
You've made the big change you wanted to make, which was fitting the.
That was a big change. Oh, that was all 10 minutes of it. But it's convenient because it
from
means
what it was, what it then allows you to do.
Yes,
it is a big change.
Okay, I'll give you that. Whatever.
Pain in the bottom.
I'll give it's a big change. Okay, yeah, I put a hitch on it. Woo. Yeah, but mostly stock because I don't want to ruin it. It's like you can get exhausts that are a bit louder. And my chief antagonist in this one was over on a work visit recently. And he said, you could get a louder exhaust for this, couldn't you? And I was like, yes. And he said, but I wouldn't. He who has transferred the same HKS back box across 3 different cars now. And if it's not the same HKS back box, and he'll probably correct me, then he's definitely moved the same carbon fiber edged exhaust tips across 3 cars. So that's the kind of lunacy I'm having to deal with here and beat off. That
your enabler, you mean?
Yeah. Even he was like, I wouldn't change too much on this. Needs bigger wheels, and he's right, it does. I just don't want everything to foul. I don't want it to become too much of a slippery slope, to be honest, but I would like. Because the trouble is I just can't store those. I then have to try and sell them, and then everything becomes a bit of a hassle.
Okay. Well, I think that sort of rounds it up. I think that's a really good explanation of the vehicle, what the Lexus-ness of it, why you've got it, what you want to do with it, and I hope you have many, many, many happy, and inexpensive miles with it.
So do I. It will need a service by the time it gets back, but that's fine. I shall go somewhere. But yes, so do I. Thank you very much. As I say, I really do like it. It makes me smile every time I start it up. And it goes vroom, and then I drive out between all the Porsches and it goes vroom. The other thing is downstairs. It doesn't look like someone's let the cleaner use their parking space.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. That's been slightly narcissistic. I'm sorry about that. But don't forget, folks, that between now and next time, you give us any feedback, share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activity. Please don't forget to leave a review or rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is if you search for Crack Windscreen on Twitter or Mastodon, you should find me there. And if people improbably think that you have not covered all the bases and all the nuts and screws and bolts and switches, etc., of your new vehicle, what's the best way for them to get in touch and ask you questions?
I'm not quite sure. I waffled so much. I think there's practically nothing that I missed. But if there is something that you would like to know more about, then you get in touch with me on Twitter or Mastodon, where I'm at HJD Bradley. That's BRADLEY. We'll be back before very long. But until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.